Khai Sarai. And because the lesson is Khai Sarai, the life of Sarah, we're going to see that Sarah ends her life at the beginning of the lesson now that Sarah dies and leaves us. But there's some important information that precedes that was a part of last week's lesson that we didn't get in detail, that we need in detail to understand coming into this week's lesson. And that's what I'm going to be privy to read to you right now. It says, Abraham told to offer Isaac. I'm reading this lesson out of the ancient book of Jasher, which is referred to in the book of Joshua, chapter 10, verse 13, and 2 Samuel, chapter 1, verse 18, and 2 Timothy, chapter 3, verse 8. It said, and when Isaac was 37 years old, Ishmael, his brother, was going about with him in the tent. And Ishmael boasted of himself to Isaac, saying, I was 13 years old when Yahweh spoke to my father to circumcise us. And I did according to the word of Yahweh, which he spoke to my father. And I gave my soul unto Yahweh. And I did not transgress his word, which he commanded my father. And Isaac answered Ishmael, saying, why doest thou boast to me about this, about a little bit of thy flesh, which thou didst take from thy body, concerning which Jehovah commanded thee? As Jehovah liveth, the God of my father Abraham, if Jehovah should say unto my father, take now thy son Isaac, and bring him up an offering before me, I would not refrain, but I would joyfully accede to it. And Jehovah heard the word that Isaac spoke to Ishmael, and it seemed good in the sight of Jehovah, that he thought to try Abraham in this manner. And the day arrived when the sons of God came and placed themselves before Jehovah. And Satan also came with the sons of God before Jehovah. Now if you remember in the book that we see, that we read in the book of Joshua, or the books that we read earlier, and it says that there was a day when the sons of God appeared before the Most High, and Satan was amongst them. And the Most High God said, what are you doing here, Satan? He said, I've come from to and fro throughout the earth, seeing whom I might devour. And I also come here, seeing who is not correct, that I might snatch them too. In other words, the 3 times in the year that we are asked to keep the holy festivals, this preceded the law of Moses. But there's a time when the sons of God appear before the Most High. And it said that the devil also appears. In that time that Abraham was going to make that sacrifice during one of those sacred times in the year. That's why I say these were not the holy days of the Hebrews. These are the holy days of Yahweh that Moses showed unto the Hebrews that they should keep to appear before God, that they can get their blessing. And that's what this refers to that way. It said, and Yahweh said unto Satan, whence comest thou? And Satan answered Yahweh and said, from going to and fro in the earth, and from walking up and down in it. And Yahweh said to Satan, what is thy word to me concerning all the children of the earth? And Satan answered Yahweh and said, I have seen all the children of the earth who serve thee, and remember thee, when they require anything from thee. And when thou givest them the thing which they require from thee, they sit at their ease and forsake thee, and they remember thee no more. So in other words, I've seen in the hearts of men, when I go around, all the men on the earth, they remember you when they need something. And when you give them what they've asked, they go and leave you and forget you once they've gotten what they've asked of you. And it says, hast thou seen Abraham, the son of Terah, who at first had no children? And he served thee, and he erected altars to thee wherever he came. And he brought up offerings upon them, and he proclaimed thy name continually to all the children of the earth. And now that his son Isaac is born to him, he has forsaken thee. He has made a great feast for all the inhabitants of the land, and the Lord he has forgotten. This is Satan talking to the Most High to tease him about Abraham. For amidst all that he has done, he brought thee no offering, neither burnt offering, nor peace offering, neither ox, lamb, or goat, of all that he killed on the day that his son was weaned. Even from the time of his son's birth till now, being 37 years, he built no altar before thee, nor brought anything to thee, for he saw that thou didst give what he requested before thee, and he therefore forsook thee. And Jehovah said to Satan, Hast thou considered my servant Abraham? For there is none like him upon the earth, a perfect and an upright man before me, one that feareth God, and avoideth evil. As I live, were I to say unto him, Bring up Isaac thy son before me, he would not withhold him from me. Much more if I told him to bring up a burnt offering before me from his flock or his herds. And Satan answered Jehovah and said, Speak then now unto Abraham, as thou hast said, and thou wilt see whether he will not this day transgress and cast aside thy words. At that time the word of Jehovah came to Abraham, and he said unto him, Abraham. And he said, Hineni, here am I. And he said to him, Take now thy son, thine only son whom thou lovest, even Isaac, and go to the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering upon one of the mountains, which shall be shown to thee. For there wilt thou see a cloud and the glory of Jehovah. And Abraham said within himself, How shall I separate my son Isaac from Sarah his mother, in order to bring him up for a burnt offering before Jehovah? And Abraham came unto the tent, and he sat before Sarah his wife, and he spoke those words to her, My son Isaac is grown up, and he has not for some time studied the service of Jehovah. Now tomorrow I will go and bring him to Shem and Eber his son, and there he will learn the ways of Jehovah, for they will teach him to know Jehovah, as well as to know that when he prayeth continually before Jehovah, he will answer him. Therefore, there he will know the ways of serving Jehovah his God. And Sarah said, Thou hast spoken well. Go, my Lord, and do unto him as thou hast said. But remove him not a great distance from me, neither let him remain there too long, for my soul is bound within his soul. And Abraham said unto Sarah, My daughter, let us pray to Jehovah our God, that he may do good with us. And Sarah took her son Isaac, and he abode all that night with her. And she kissed and embraced him, and gave him instructions until the morning. And she said unto him, O my son, how can my soul separate itself from thee? And she still kissed him and embraced him, and she gave Abraham instructions concerning him. And Sarah said to Abraham, O my Lord, I pray thee, take heed of thy son, and place thine eyes over him. For I have no other son nor daughter but him. O forsake him not. If he be hungry, give him bread. And if he be thirsty, give him water to drink. Do not let him go on foot, neither let him sit in the sun, neither let him go by himself on the road, neither force him from whatever he may desire, but do unto him as he may say to thee. And Sarah wept bitterly the whole night on account of Isaac, and she gave him instructions until the morning. And in the morning Sarah selected a very fine and beautiful garment from those garments which she had in the house, that Abimelech had given to her. And she dressed Isaac her son therewith, and she put a turban upon his head, and she enclosed a precious stone in the top of the turban. And she gave them provisions for the road, and they went forth. And Isaac went with his father Abraham, and some of their servants accompanied them to see them off on the road. And Sarah went on with them, and she accompanied them upon the road to see them off. And they said to her, Return to the tent. And when Sarah heard the words of her son Isaac, she wept bitterly. And Abraham her husband wept with her, and their son wept with them, a great weeping. Also those who went with them wept greatly. And Sarah caught hold of her son Isaac, and she held him in her arms, and she embraced him, and she continued to weep with him. And Sarah said, Who knoweth if after this day I shall ever see thee again? And they still wept together. Abraham, Sarah, and Isaac, and all those that accompanied them on the road wept with them. And Sarah afterwards turned away from her son, weeping bitterly, and all her men servants and maidservants turned with her to the tent. And Abraham went with Isaac his son, to bring him up as an offering before Jehovah, as he had commanded him. And Abraham took 2 of his young men with him, Ishmael the son of Hagar, and Eleazar his servant, and they went together with them. And whilst they were walking in the road, the young men spoke these words to themselves. Ishmael said to Eleazar, "Now my father Abraham is going with Isaac, to bring him up for a burnt offering to the Lord." And he commanded him, as he commanded him. "Now when he returns, he will give unto me all he possesses, to inherit after him, for I am his firstborn son." And Eleazar answered Ishmael and said, "Surely Abraham did cast thee away with thy mother, and swear that thou shouldest not inherit anything of all he possesses. To whom will he give all that he has, with all his treasures? But unto me, his servant, who has been faithful in his house, who has served him night and day, and has done all that he desired me. To me will he bequeath at his death all that he possesses." So they, knowing that Abraham was supposed to sacrifice Isaac, believe he's going to sacrifice him, or arguing over who's going to inherit him. Ishmael saying, "That's going to be me. I'm going to be the only son he got left." And Eliezer going to say, "It's going to be me, because he already cast you away, so he's not going to give you all his possessions. And I've served him from before you were born, and before Isaac was born. So surely I'm going to be the one that's going to inherit it." So Isaac is not even dead, but they're arguing over who's going to inherit Abraham. And so while Abraham was proceeding with his son Isaac along the road, Satan came and appeared to Abraham in the figure of a very aged man, humble and of contrite spirit. And he approached Abraham and said to him, "Art thou silly and brutish, that thou goest to do this thing this day to thine only son?" Now mind you, Satan didn't appear Satan. But who knows how Satan looks? If you're looking for the devil, who knows how the devil looks? He just appeared as an old man, a wise old man. Sometimes we don't know how Satan has visited us because we see them as a friend we know, as an advisor we know. You don't know that was the devil just there. Like we were talking earlier today about a real incident that happened, and somebody wrote how somebody informed me, which you were talking about me. And the person that informed them told you something wrong and made you have an attitude against all these other people. But you saw the person that informed you as a friend. You didn't see them as Satan, turning your mind away from your own people. Because at the moment, you're looking for the devil in another form. So you're not looking at the devil in the person of somebody you know, and you didn't even think that it did you. It would take somebody else to say, "That wasn't right what they told you. That wasn't the truth. And look how distorted you got, and the distorted view you now have of what you were thinking was true." But you won't say, "It's Satan." But one of the things our old people used to say, and I know my grandmother and them, but I know Mother Wisdom perfected it. When you went into the house of David, you came in with some nonsense, she wouldn't look at you and say, "Alita, have you lost your mind?" She would lit up and say, "Satan, Lord God rebuke you." Like the devil just got in you. That's the devil talking. And you look and say, "I'm the devil?" But what you just said, yes, the devil just spoke out of you. And I won't countenance. So in order to save you, Satan, Lord God, get out of her. And all of a sudden, you almost come out of that spell, but we don't invoke that today. We rather castigate the character of the person as if Satan had no play in it. Last week we talked about God coming in the form of 3 men. And Abraham and Lot having their eyes open to see that it was God and not just 3 men. And here it is that the devil has come now in the person of an old man to tempt Abraham about questioning the words of God. And we'll see the role that he plays, but he's not finished there. It says, and whilst Abraham was proceeding with his son Isaac along the road, Satan came and appeared to Abraham in the figure of a very aged man, humble and of contrite spirit. And he approached Abraham and said to him, "Are you silly or brutish, thick-headed, that you are going this day with your only son? For God gave thee a son in thy latter days, in thy old age, and will you go and slaughter him this day because he committed no violence? And will you cause the soul of your only son to perish from the earth?" Man, are you in your right sense? Are you in your right mind? It's an old man. Also of a contrite spirit, humble. You say, can't be the devil, but the devil is proud. But the devil ain't going to come the way you want him to come, that you can know him. Right. You got to come in a way that you don't know that it's him. It said, do you not know and understand that this thing cannot be from God? That wasn't the Lord talking to you. It says, for the Lord cannot do unto man such evil upon the earth to say to him, go and slaughter your son. And Abraham heard this and knew that it was the word of Satan. That was the clarity of Abraham. That's why we say, when you want to pray for the Holy Spirit, there's supposed to be 7 attributes. Pray for the spirit of discernment. That you can discern properly between the word of God and the word of deception or the adversary, which is Satan. It says, and Abraham heard this and knew that it was the word of Satan, who endeavored to draw him aside from the way of the Lord. But Abraham would not hearken to the voice of Satan. And Abraham rebuked him so that he went away. And that's what I just said. Satan, Lord God, rebuke thee. Get away from me. It says, and Satan returned and came to Isaac. And he appeared unto Isaac in the figure of a young man, comely and well-favored. He went to Abraham as an old man. Now Satan is going to Isaac as a young man, young handsome man. He said, let me try Isaac. And he approached Isaac and said unto him, do you not know and understand that this old silly father is bringing you to the slaughter this day? Did you know that? Now therefore, my son, do not listen nor attend to him, for he is a silly old man. And let not thy precious soul and beautiful figure be lost from the earth. Again, tempting him with these words. And Isaac heard this, and said unto Abraham, hast thou heard, my father, that which this man has spoken? Even thus has he spoken. And Abraham answered his son Isaac and said to him, take heed of him, and do not listen to his words, nor attend to him, for he is Satan, endeavoring to draw us aside this day from the commands of God. And Abraham still rebuked Satan, and Satan went from them. And seeing he could not prevail over them, he hid himself from them. And he went and passed before them in the road. And he transformed himself into a large brook of water in the road. And Abraham and Isaac and his 2 young men reached that place. And they saw a brook large and powerful as a mighty river or mighty waters. And they entered the brook and passed through it. And the waters at first reached their legs. And they went deeper in the brook. And the waters reached up to their necks. And they were all terrified on account of this water. And while they were going over the brook, Abraham recognized that place. And he knew that there was no water there before. And Abraham said to his son Isaac, I know this place in which there was no brook, nor water. Now therefore it is this Satan who does all this to us, to draw us aside this day from the commandments of God. And Abraham rebuked him, and said unto him, the Lord rebuke thee, O Satan. be gone from us, for we go by the commandments of God. And Satan was terrified at the voice of Abraham, and he went away from them. And the place again became dry land, and as it was at the first. And Abraham went with Isaac toward the place that God had told him. And on the third day, Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place at a distance which God had told him of. And a pillar of fire appeared to him that reached from the earth to heaven, and a cloud of glory upon the mountain. And the glory of the Lord was seen in the cloud. And Abraham said to Isaac, My son, doest thou see in that mountain which we perceive at a distance that which I see upon it? And Isaac answered and said unto his father, I see, and lo, a pillar of fire and a cloud, and the glory of Jehovah is seen upon the cloud. And Abraham knew that his son Isaac was accepted before Jehovah for a burnt offering. And Abraham said to Eleazar and unto Ishmael his son, Do you also see that which we see upon the mountain, which is in the distance? And they answered and said, We see nothing more than like the other mountains of the earth. And Abraham knew that they were not accepted before Jehovah to go with them. And Abraham said to them, Abide you here with the ass, while I and Isaac my son will go to yonder mount and worship there before Jehovah, and then return. Then Eliezer and Ishmael remained in that place, as Abraham had commanded. And Abraham took wood for a burnt offering, and placed it upon his son Isaac. And he took the fire and the knife, and they both went to that place. And when they were going along, Isaac said to his father, Behold, I see here the fire and wood, and where then is the lamb that is to be the burnt offering before Jehovah? And Abraham answered his son Isaac, saying, Jehovah has made choice of thee, my son, to be a perfect burnt offering instead of the lamb. And Isaac said unto his father, I will do all that Jehovah spoke to thee with joy and cheerfulness of heart. And Abraham again said unto Isaac his son, Is there in thy heart any thought or counsel concerning this, which is not proper? Tell me, my son, I pray thee, O my son, conceal it not from me. And Isaac answered his father Abraham and said, unto him, O Abi, O my father, as Jehovah liveth, and as thy soul liveth, there is nothing in my heart to cause me to deviate, either to the right or to the left, from the word that he has spoken to thee. Neither limb nor muscle has moved, nor stirred this, nor is there in my heart any thought or evil counsel concerning this. But I am joyful and cheerful in heart in this matter. And I say, Blessed is Jehovah, who hath this day chosen me to be a burnt offering before him. And Abraham greatly rejoiced at the words of Isaac. And they went on and came together to that place, and which Jehovah had spoken of. And Abraham approached to build the altar in that place. And Abraham was weeping, and Isaac took stones and mortar until they had finished building the altar. And Abraham took the wool and placed it in order upon the altar which he had built. And Abraham took wood and placed it in order upon the altar which he had built. And he took his son Isaac and bound him in order to place him upon the wood which was upon the altar, to slay him for a burnt offering before Jehovah. And Isaac said to his father, Bind me securely, and then place me upon the altar, lest I should turn and move, and break loose from the force of the knife upon my flesh, and therefore profane the burnt offering. And Abraham did so. And Isaac still said to his father, O my father, when thou shalt have slain me, and burnt me for an offering, take with thee that which shall remain of my ashes, to bring them to Sarah my mother, and say to her, This is the sweet-smelling savor of Isaac. But do not tell her this if she should sit near a well, or upon any high place, lest she should cast her soul after me and die. And Abraham heard the words of Isaac, and he lifted up his voice And he wept when Isaac spake these words. And Abraham's tears gushed down from upon Isaac his son. And Isaac wept bitterly. And he said to his father, Hasten thou, O father, and do with me the will of Jehovah our God, as he has commanded thee. And the hearts of Abraham and Isaac rejoiced at this thing which the Lord had commanded them. But the eye wept bitterly, whilst the heart rejoiced. And Abraham bound his son Isaac, and placed him on the altar upon the wood. And Isaac stretched forth his neck upon the altar before Jehovah. And Abraham stretched forth his hand to take the knife to slay his son as a burnt offering before Jehovah. At that time the angels of mercy came before Jehovah and spoke to him concerning Isaac, saying, O Jehovah, thou art a merciful and compassionate king over all that thou hast created in heaven and in earth, and thou supportest them all. Give therefore ransom and redemption instead of thy servant Isaac, and pity and have compassion upon Abraham and Isaac his son, who are this day performing thy command. Hast thou seen, O Jehovah, how Isaac the son of Abraham thy servant is bound down to slaughter like an animal? Now therefore let thy pity be aroused for them, O Jehovah. At that time Jehovah appeared unto Abraham and called to him from heaven, and said unto him, Lay not thine hand upon the lad, neither do thou anything unto him. For now I know that thou fearest God in performing this act, and in not withholding thy son, thine only son, from me. And Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw, and behold, a ram was caught in a thicket by his horns. That was the ram which Jehovah God had created in the earth in the day that he made the earth and heaven. And Jehovah had prepared this ram from that day to be a burnt offering instead of Isaac. And this ram was advancing to Abraham when Satan caught hold on him and entangled his horns in the thicket, that he might not advance to Abraham, in order that Abraham might slay his son. And Abraham, seeing the ram advancing to him, and Satan withholding him, fetched him, and brought him before the altar. And he loosened his son Isaac from his binding, and he put the ram in his stead. And Abraham killed the ram upon the altar, and brought it up as an offering in the place of his son Isaac. And Abraham sprinkled some of the blood of the ram upon the altar. And he exclaimed and said, This is in the place of my son, and may this be considered this day as the blood of my son before Jehovah. And all that Abraham did on this occasion by the altar, he would exclaim and say, This is in the room of my son, and may it this day be considered before Jehovah in the place of my son. And Abraham finished the whole of the service by the altar, and the service was accepted before Jehovah, and was accounted as if it had been Isaac. And Jehovah blessed Abraham and his seed on that day. And Satan went to Sarah. He wouldn't stop. See how he went to Abraham, he came to Isaac, now he's coming to Sarah. And Satan went to Sarah, and he appeared to her in the figure of an old man, very humble and meek. And Abraham was yet engaged in the burnt offering before Jehovah. And he said unto Sarah, Do you know all the work that Abraham has made with thine son this day? He said, Do you know what your husband is doing today? Do you know what he's up to? So he took Isaac and built an altar and killed him, and brought him up as a sacrifice upon the altar. And Isaac cried and wept before his father, but he looked not at him, neither did he have compassion over him. Now Satan is lying. That's why you say you lying wonder, you lying spirit. So Satan went and told Sarah that Abraham killed your son. And while your son was screaming and crying and pleading, your husband didn't even look at him, nor give him an ear. He slaughtered your son. And Satan repeated these words, and he went away from her. And Sarah heard all the words of Satan, and she imagined him to be an old man from amongst the ones of the men, of some of the sons of men who had been with her son. and had come and told her these things. And Sarah lifted up her voice and wept, and cried out bitterly on account of her son. And she threw herself upon the ground, and she cast dust upon her head. And she said, O my son, Isaac, my son, oh, that I had this day died instead of you. And she continued to weep and said, it grieves me for you, my son Isaac. Oh, that I had died this day in your stead. And she still continued to weep and said, it grieves me for thee, after that I have reared thee, and have brought thee up. Now my joy is turned into mourning over thee. I that had a longing for thee, and cried and prayed to God till I bare thee at 90 years old, and now hast thou served this day for a knife and for fire to be made an offering. But I console myself with thee, my son, in its being the word of the Lord. For thou didst perform the command of thy God. For who can transgress the word of our God, in whose hands is the soul of every living creature? Thou art just, O Lord our God, for all thy works are good and righteous. For I also am rejoiced with thy word, which thou hast commanded. And whilst mine eye weepeth bitterly, my heart rejoiceth. And Sarah laid her head upon the bosom of one of her handmaids, and she became as still as a stone. She afterwards rose up and went about making inquiries till she came to Hebron. And she inquired of all those whom she met walking in the road, and no one could tell her what had happened to her son. And she came with her maidservants and menservants to Kiryat Arba, which is Hebron, and she asked concerning her son. And she remained there while she sent some of her servants to seek where Abraham had gone with Isaac. And they went to seek him in the house of Shem and Eber, and they could not find him. And they sought throughout the land, and he was not there. And behold, Satan came to Sarah in the shape of an old man, and he came and stood before her. And he said unto her, I spoke falsely unto you. For Abraham did not kill his son, and he is not dead. And when she heard the word, her joy was so exceedingly violent on account of her son, that her soul went out through joy, and she died and was gathered to her people. So it meant that she died and joined the ancestors, because she was so happy that she had a heart attack. This is why I always say, when I tell you the story of Joseph, when the sons came back and told Jacob that your son Joseph is alive in Egypt, they were saying, how are we going to tell our father? Because all these years our father believed Joseph was dead. And he's been in mourning for all the years that he thought Joseph was dead. And now we come and rush in on him and tell him that your son Joseph is alive and well and living in the land of Egypt and ruling Egypt. Maybe what happened to our grandmother will happen to him. Maybe he'll die out of shock. So they had to figure out how to tell Jacob that Joseph was alive. And that's why you hear only one daughter, one granddaughter was mentioned. Out of all the sons of Jacob, only the men were mentioned. And who was that one daughter? Her name was Sarah. And she was the daughter of Asher. And because she was gifted upon the harp, she went in and sat before her grandfather and began to sing a song saying, Joseph, thy son, is alive and well in the land of Egypt. She put in the sound of a song. And then when he started paying attention to the words, all of a sudden, he too got still as a stone, as if he almost was going to die. But then he came to life and heard that she's saying that my son Joseph is alive. And that's how they were able to break the news to him. But it's based upon them knowing this history, how they lost their great-grandmother Sarah on getting good news that her son was not dead but was alive. And so likewise, Jacob, who thought Joseph was dead and killed by beasts, found out that his son Joseph was alive in Egypt. And he had to find a good way to break the news to him so the news wouldn't be so shocking that he too would die over hearing good news. So I'll continue until we complete that. says, and when Abraham had finished his service, he returned with his son Isaac to his young men. And they rose up and went together to Beersheba, and they came home. And Abraham sought for Sarah, and could not find her. And he made inquiries concerning her. And they said unto him, She went as far as Hebron, to seek you both where you had gone. For thus was she informed. Then they told Abraham, Well, where's my wife? Then they had to reveal everything to him and say, Well, your wife heard that you went to kill your son, that you went to offer your son on the altar, and she went to find y'all. And we haven't seen her. She never returned. And it said, And Abraham and Isaac went to her to Hebron. And when they found that she was dead, they lifted up their voices and wept bitterly over her. And Isaac fell upon his mother's face and wept over her. And he said, O my mother, how hast thou left me? And where hast thou gone? O how hast thou left me? And Abraham and Isaac wept greatly, and all their servants wept with them, on account of Sarah. And they mourned over her, a great and heavy mourning. Hallelujah. So you see, today's lesson would have been Khai Sarah. And if I read to you out of the regular Bible, without those details, which I'll do the first couple of verses, you'll get now a reference to what we missed, according to what you just heard. Now the lesson today, for the sake of continuity, I will just read the first verse in Hebrew, was Wayahu Kaye Sarah Mea Shanai Esre Shanai Say Va Shanai Shanai Kai Sarah Kamat Sarah Bekir Yak Arba He Keberon Beoret Kenaan Yavod Abraham Lisakar Lesora Walib Kalthor. Hallelujah. And it says, Sarah's lifetime was 120 years and 7 years, the years of Sarah's life. So it says, Sarah lived to be 127 years. So that meant that Isaac was 37 years. But she had him when she was 90 years old. And it says, and Sarah died in Kiryat Arba. So you see, that's supposed to give you the link. How did she get there? What I just read to you showed you how she got there. She got there going to look for Abraham and Isaac. And that was where Satan appeared as an old man again and told her the truth this time. But the truth was too much. You know, they had that famous picture, A Few Good Men. And when they had Demi Moore and what's his name, the famous young actor played the lawyer, and they asked the general for the truth. And the general said, you can't stand the truth. I mean, the truth is too heavy sometimes for you to take it. This is what white America decided with the curriculum that they were trying to get passed that tells the truth about American history. They call it the curriculum of well, anyway, I forget the name of it right now to come back to me. But they didn't want their children to be taught this truth. But it might be too shocking for them to wake up to understand how did the white man get to have all these riches and be in charge of the world. And so they call it critical race theory. And that's the name of the curriculum, critical race theory. And so they didn't want that truth to shock their people. So you can see, again, how people measure, can I really say the truth? Sometimes the truth can be heavy. We have a proverb that says the truth is heavy, therefore few people carry it. Everybody can't carry it. So in that respect, you see it has a relevance here. So it says, and Sarah died in Kiryat Arba, which is in Hebron, in the land of Canaan. And Abraham came to eulogize Sarah and bewail her. And Abraham rose up from the presence of his dead and spoke to the children of Keth, saying, I am an alien, a stranger, and a resident among you. Grant me an estate for a burial site with you, that I may bury my dead from before me. And the children of Keth answered Abraham, saying to him, Hear us, my Lord. You are a prince of God in our midst. In the choice of our burial place, bury your dead. Any of us will not withhold his burial place from before you, from burying your dead. Then Abraham rose up and bowed down to the members of the council, to the children of Keth. And he spoke to them, saying, If it is truly your will to bury my dead from before me, heed me and intercede for me with Ephron, the son of Zohar. Let him grant me the cave of Machpelah, which is his, on the edge of his field. Let him grant it to me for its full price in your midst, as an estate for a burial site. Now Ephron was sitting in the midst of the children of Keth. And Ephron, the Hittite, responded to Abraham in the hearing of the children of Keth, for all who came to the gate of his city, saying, No, my Lord, heed me. I have given you the field, and as for the cave that is in it, I have given it to you. In the view of the children of my people have I given it to you. Bury your dead. So you see, Abraham, being a wise man, no doubt had lived amongst them long enough to know, don't go for that. He said, Oh, you a great man. This land is already yours. And the cave that is on that land is already yours. Go ahead and bury your wife. We all one. Said Abraham spoke, and he spoke to Ephron in the hearing of all the members of the council, and said, Rather, if only you would heed me, I will give the price of the field. Accept it from me, that I might bury my dead. Abraham said, No, listen to me. I'll give you the money for it. What is it worth? Let me pay for it. He didn't want him to say at the end of the day, No, I didn't give that to you. Would I give you that land for free? So Abraham said, No, let me give you something for it, that all the people might see that I paid for the land. The land is mine. I don't want the days to come where you change your mouth and change your word. Let me give you something for it. And Ephron replied to Abraham, saying to him, My Lord, heed me. The land is worth 400 silver shekels. Between me and you, what is that? He said, Okay, now that you mention it, give me 400 pieces of silver. What is that between me and you? In other words, you're a rich man, that's nothing to you. So a land that you wanted to give for free, now all of a sudden you put this big price on it. 400 shekels of silver. And Ephron replied to Abraham, saying to him, My Lord, heed me. Land worth 400 pieces of silver. Between me and you, what is that? Bury your dead. Abraham heeded Ephron, and Abraham weighed out to Ephron the price which he had mentioned, in the hearing of all the children of Keth, 400 silver shekels in negotiable currency. In other words, what it means, according to the price of today, it means like today, you have to say, what is the worth of the CD today? Is it 14 CDs? Is it 1430? Is it 1380? It meant that in current currency, what the worth was on the market today, he paid him that amount in front of everybody, so there would be no discrepancy about who owned the land later on. And what is he going to further do? It says, in Ephron's field, which was in Machpelah, facing Mamre, the field and the cave within it, and all the trees in the field. So you see how you negotiate today? I mean, all the coconuts on it, all the orange trees, everything on the land is in that 400. Don't come to me later and say, I got to pay you for the trees, and I got to pay you for the plants, and I got to pay you for the cocoa and the plantain. I'm paying you for the cave and all that is in it, and for the trees of the field within it, and all the surrounding boundaries, was confirmed at Abraham's as a purchase in the view of the children of Keth, among all who came to the gate of his city. And after Abraham buried Sarah his wife in the cave of the field of Machpelah, facing Mamre, which is Hebron, in the land of Canaan. So that cave, Machpelah, means the cave of the four. And there's many different interpretations of what the cave of the four meant. Some say Adam and Eve was buried in that cave, and Abraham knew that, and that's why he wanted that field. That's why he wanted that cave. Then it would become his birthplace, him and Sarah, Isaac and Rebekah, and Jacob and Leah. That's why they call it the cave of the four. So since we have our limited audience today, I chose to go on another book, and so I'll stop there and ask any questions, any commentary on what you heard or what you read today, or what I read today.
The first thing that comes to mind for me is almost parallel to what happened in the Garden of Eden, where Adam was busy doing stuff. And then as the plan will go to Eve and occupy her. And I see the same pattern here where Abraham is out there doing what he has to do, but as the plan goes behind to go disturb Sarah. Another thing that stands out is the clarity that this gives to the regular reading of Scripture, where we see the thinking of Sarah, like we mentioned before. Then also the fact that our words are powerful. Isaac, from the reading, is the one that brought this to the family, where he's correcting his brother on the fact that, why are you boasting? You have just done one good, one obedient act. Well, I can go even further. If my father asks me to lay my life, and I will. So the whole story shows that this is Isaac's pronouncement. And the Most High says, okay, if you have said so, then so it is. And all of that then plays out. And I think the other thing is, I also see another parallel between this story and Jonah, where Satan would go to the Most High and say, well, you blessed him. And he said the same thing. You blessed Abraham. And for Job, it is you blessed Job. You take up one blessing and see if Job will not deny you. And I see a parallel between this story and that. So these are the things that come out strong for me.
It's the book of Job that we hear that same scenario. The sons of God came to appear before God.
Yeah, exactly.
And Satan came up.
Exactly.
That's how the book of Job opens up.
So I see the parallel.
And that also shows that we are the same people of this Bible. Like we go on a land before we in the village people come and said the coconut was not enough. So you have to pay for the coconuts in this time. And this one is not a man here to pay. The cassava was not a man here to pay. So that it shows clearly that
Yes.
The
they
same
are
people.
the same people.
In fact, to add to what Sister made, the way Sarah reacted both times when she was told that the son is dead and the son is alive. Scripture goes as far as saying she threw herself to the floor, picked the sand or ashes on top of her head. That's the typical thing any African mother would do if you tell them a story about their child. It's typical.
And roll on the floor.
That's it. They
Roll on the ground.
Yeah. I remember my grandmother did that when my mother was pronounced dead. Put it in the ice box. My grandfather said no, she wasn't dead. Brought her home with prayers. And when she woke up, my grandmother couldn't believe it. She couldn't believe it. She felt when they told her she was dead, she cried and wailed.
Rolled on the
and
floor.
when they said she was okay, she's back to life. She couldn't take it.
So you see, we have those real stories amongst us.
Yeah.
I was gonna say the same thing Mabel said at first. Is how can people who are like Kemetic, Muslim, and Christian, you can clearly tell they're not reading the word. They haven't read the word, or either they didn't read it with clarity and understanding. Because the more I read it and the more we break down these scriptures, it's like literally what's happening today, because we live in the land and we amongst the people who never lost the culture. Like, we're literally seeing it every day. So I was going to bring up the same analogy when I sell the land. We get a certain price for the land, and then we come back like, okay, you got 15 orange trees and you got 3 coconuts and 1 palm, and we're going to need 20 CD per tree to pay the farmer so he leaves, because he's not allowed to squat on the land anymore. And so, when I first heard this, I'm just like, what are you talking about? Like, why would I pay you for the tree and the land? How is the tree not the land? And so I just started learning, like, that that's a real thing. So when they tell me we're taking the farmer's food, and they will take some of this food and split it with the owner, then the rest they will take home, and this is how they eat. So now we're giving them money to leave, and it's kind of like a play on your sympathy, because you're like, okay, that makes sense. But just like the scriptures say, that the trees should be included in the price they set for selling the land. And so all these different surprises that's come up, you're like, they're real issues that happen in the Bible. And if I wasn't on the land, I never would be able to relate to this issue. We're not getting land in America. Nobody even have coconut trees in their backyard. It's not a thing. And so it's just like amazing to learn these scriptures, and you know we are the people of the book, and then you conclude that the rest of the world is just not reading this book, or they're not getting a proper understanding from what they are reading. And so that's sad. My people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge.
That's right.
Yeah.
Proper analysis. Because if you say how you did it, since you overpriced me, that's going to include the trees.
Right, yeah.
It's going to include the cave. What's in the cave. In other words, you got to find, because if you're not smart, and they tell you that it's $5,000 a plot,
right,
and you're not supposed to say, does that include the coconut trees?
Right,
The mere fact that you weren't thinking and don't know and didn't say it, they would say, no, but I didn't say the coconut trees.
Right, yeah.
But I took the money. Meanwhile, it could have meant that if you mentioned that.
Right.
Or negotiated that. But the fact you didn't negotiate it, now you left yourself open for that to be a separate sale and a separate negotiation. But Abraham was quick to say, I'll pay it, but that includes the trees, the cave, what's in the cave, and all the surrounding stuff in there is going to be in that 400 pieces of silver. Since you decided to say it's 400, first you give it to me for free. Now I said, no, I'm going to pay you something, and you went way something. So let me put all the something in it.
Exactly.
But it shows you how to negotiate.
Right.
And how to, just like he did with the angel. If there be found 50 men,
Right.
he didn't just say,
It's the same.
he didn't just go down to 10. He said, but suppose the 50 lacked 5.
Right.
And then, you mean that if it lacked another 10, you wouldn't have that same mercy?
Right, yeah.
And then
He was negotiating.
he was negotiating hard. That was serious. But there's a lesson in there.
Yeah.
How you ease up on it. Like we would like to say, first I used to say, just cut it in half. Somebody say 80, you say 40. But if the person says something ridiculous, they say 80, I say I give you 80.
Right.
Because you started way up there.
Okay, I'm gonna go
So I'm starting way down there.
Yeah.
And then, but if you start and you say 80, you say 40, you say no, 75, I say 35.
Right.
You going down, I'm going down too. So you better catch it. I had it at 40, now it's 35. But in other words, you got to figure out your scheme of how you're going to ease up. When every situation is different. With the value you put on it, what you're going to walk away with. So in that respect, there's a lot of lessons to be learned in there.
I think it also shows that we don't take the fact that we know that we're the people of the book or the children of the Most High for granted, not to sharpen our other skills.
Right.
Assuming Abraham did not have the skill of negotiation, and just sat there and say, well, I'm a child of the Most High. He gave me the covenant.
Right.
You know, that is a done deal.
You heathens.
Exactly.
So he bowed down to them. He was negotiating before traditional council. But this is what he called the council. People before the elders. It said the cat happened to be in the midst of the council of elders and heard him talking. And he got up and said, so that's my land. That's mine. You give it to you. You one of us. But they were in the council of elders there when he made that petition. They know he's mourning because he just lost the wife. He don't have no land that he can bury, so he got to ask for land to bury.
Right.
You know? So there's a lot of lessons in here of how to do protocol, how to do negotiation, how to be in order. And you know he didn't want nobody in that room that's going to cause no trouble and mess up his negotiation. Nor talk out of turn.
Yes.
You know that famous picture in The Godfather? And when the man who was going to bring narcotics into New York, and he called a meeting, and the Godfather had his oldest son there. He had his conciliatory there, Tom, the lawyer. And then when Godfather negotiated, you don't know, he's an old man, he's been this a long time. He got his own lean back posture, and now he's letting them see him. So when he said, no, I don't want no narcotics here, there's a bad, dirty business, gambling, people can look over, prostitution, people can look over, but narcotics is another thing. And I may not have these judges and police in my pocket if I dealt with that. And then they say, whoa, but Godfather, you can do so and so. And then he says, no, are you telling me? The Godfather said, no, I got this. But he said it cool, right?
Yeah.
But when he left, he said, don't you ever cross me when I'm negotiating out here again. Don't you ever show our opposition that we might have a separate mind.
Right.
We come into these meetings, we got one mind. And one person is talking. You just showed them an alternative. And then what happened was that wasn't over. Because of that, they tried to kill the father so they can deal with Sonny. Because they said, no, the son was for us. That means these are forces of darkness. Then they go back and surrender into their corner. And then they evaluate all that happened. Just like you go back and evaluate all that happened. In the conclusion of their evaluation, they said, the old man is hard line, but the son we can deal with. So if we get rid of the old man, then we can deal with the son, and then we can get our way. All because he showed that there was another mind there. There's a separate thought there. And we don't realize the skills that we learned in this outside of the Bible making you think you're floating with angels all around. But it's all kind of practical skills and lessons to be learned out of what some of these lessons teach us. And when you go into a place, like we said, how can we have in the United Nations membership of 55 African nations, and we all negotiating differently, all negotiating for ourselves, and wonder why Africa is divided and all of that. How? Does it cross our mind the power we would have even if we rotated years? This year, only the President of Ghana is going to speak for all of us. If we take 10 meetings, 20 meetings for us to get all our programs together and let one African leader speak at the General Assembly. Next year, so-and-so speak. But just think of the implications of that, the psychological message that we send with that, if we can just agree to that. After all, who's listening to any of you? They don't care about what you're going to think, but if they said, no, we all got together and we're speaking with one voice and President so-and-so is going to speak because we got a message for the world, they're going to say, what they got to say? They got one person speaking? Well, they must have come up with something. Let me what they got to say. Because most of the time when an African leader is speaking, look at the General Assembly. Everybody's out there. Ain't nobody listening to them. And what they do, they got the camera close up on them so the people in the nation act like he said something to somebody. And the camera don't even show the audience is empty. It's like because they done spent a lot of their people's money to go there. And they got like, oh, the president at the General Assembly in the UN and the president addressing the UN today. Who was listening to him? Even most times the people in the country didn't even listen to him. This is like, it don't mean nothing. People looking at soccer and soap opera. So they assume that he ain't saying nothing.
When they see it like that, they got to also boycott.
Yes.
You speak, you also leave.
That's what Mugabe was doing. Mugabe was boycotting the UN. Like, you ain't listening until you give us a seat on the Security Council. I'm not going to waste my words on you. And even when he went there, he didn't waste his words, but he's telling the truth. He speak his mind. But how many? If they even just said, let him talk. And they all filled up the hall. Like it meant something. They wouldn't want to miss it. They wouldn't leave us alone. So there's a whole lot to be learned in some of these things, but we don't look like we really want to learn lessons. We're satisfied with where we are.
So, I follow this group of diasporas that are building land in America. They bought like a mass amount of it, and they're selling it to our people, and they're doing off-grid living and things like that. The same thing that we're kind of trying to do here with the Pan-African Village, they're doing it there. And so I follow them to see, because they're ahead and they are facing a lot of different issues that come up, and so I be trying to follow them to get the necessary questions that I should ask.
Right.
Because if you don't know this law and this world is foreign to you, you don't really know what you should ask until it come up, and sometimes it's too late. Like you've already been, outvoted or lost the money.
Yeah.
And so the term they use, it slips my mind. I was trying to find it on my phone, but they were basically getting asked, it's a term for, you probably know, but when you buy the land, is the minerals yours too? So if they find gold under it, is that yours too? And so I know as a freehold buyer, that will make sense that it's all yours, but as a leasehold, I can imagine them to say, no, if it's gold under there, it's not yours.
No, it's not. That's a land that the chiefs are having a problem with. It's not even the chiefs that sold it to you. See, Ghana, all the minerals, because of the colonial structure and then the rollover, all precious minerals belong to the government of Ghana.
Wow.
So that's why you can have chiefs in Takwa, also on gold land and they poor. Because they don't own the gold. The government owns it. The government owns all the rights. The first time I went to South Africa, we were invited by a couple of people, but the Queen Mother of the Bafo Kingdom invited us to her compound to be her guests. So when we entered that town, with Kojo Yank and his wife, rest in peace and blessed be upon her soul, I realized they had beautiful paved streets. They said, oh, the Queen did these roads. Went by a stadium called the Kaiser Stadium. That's a beautiful soccer stadium. They said, oh, the Queen built the stadium. They had a street light, they said, the Queen did. I said, which Queen? Said, the Queen we're going to be the guest of. We got to her compound. She had beautiful guest houses on her compound. We stayed in the guest house. I had my own guest house. I mean house, not chalet. And Kojo and his wife stayed in their own guest house. She had her palace. And I said, wow, she got money. Then they said, yeah, because unlike Ghana, the apartheid system was different than the colonial system. In South Africa, if you own the land, you own the rights on the land. They just have to negotiate with you that the gold belongs to you. They negotiate with you direct because they know the gold is yours. But the government didn't own it. The chiefs owned it because the government was white. And so the white government had to come and directly deal with the black chiefs for their gold. But it meant the chiefs still owned what was in the land. But he said, but in Ghana, when they form with their government, in order for them to have access to resources, the government takes control of all the resources so that the chief on the land doesn't own that gold. It belongs to the government. So you can have, it takes the government go and negotiate with the chief and give them access and all of that so the people don't disturb them and trouble them and everything. But the government has that access. Now what is even worse, in the Francophone nations, the French government still owns the mineral rights, we put that in there, to what is under the ground in that nation. So you in the Ivory Coast, the government owns the mineral, but you can't negotiate a deal with it without passing through the French and giving them the first rights to it and to define it. So these are different land laws, and why when you go to a place, you have to understand the laws of the land. Now what gave us our understanding of law, land law in America, which has polluted our mind about ownership, because those laws were made for thievery. The white man came in to steal land. So he wouldn't say, you put your markers down, you got your paper, the land is mine, you step on it, I'll shoot you. So they were stealing land. So they actually own the land that they stole. So if you can get it, you can register, you got a deed, this is mine. All the trees on it, the lake on it, the river on it is mine. Because that's the mentality of thieves who come in and steal the land, and it's mine. You ain't getting no money for no coconut. You ain't getting no money for no peach. You ain't getting no money for I own all of this. But it's the I own concept that comes with the West and land grabbers. So that we have taken up that understanding of the ownership. Because technically, the Native American and the African, truthfully speaking, an individual can't own a land.
Right.
You are going to go back to that earth. That land owns you.
Yeah.
You come out of it, you're going back in it. But collectively, we can be custodians of it so that the best use of it can benefit us all. That's supposed to be the concept of land custodianship. That we share land so that together we can benefit from the land. And that can mean in your family, you share it forever, but it's shared. Like even in your family, you cannot own it. The best you can do is be the queen mother or the custodian of it for the benefit of the family. You have to be looking out for the family. Any family member that came to you and they have a new family, born family, we're going to have a portion to build our house, to grow our food. We're going to take that portion. We're going to take that portion, build your house, do your food, live. Enjoy the land. It's our mother. Let the land enjoy itself. You enjoy the land. But the idea, concept of it, ownership really means responsibility. I'm responsible for maintaining this land, growing crop on this land, making sure this land doesn't go out to the strangers, and our family lose possession of it. It's a whole nother understanding that we have to be brought back into a knowledge of because it's gotten fuzzy. Even in Africa, it's gotten fuzzy. Even in families, it's gotten fuzzy. So that's why some family members are in court because one family member got access and he was selling land and deeds and different, and he's only pocketing the money, and then the cousin found out, and then the queen mother found out, he sold you what? He took all that money and he didn't give us that? What? They go in there, no. Call him in. This man, he's in our family, but he's a wicked nephew. And he had no right to selling all that land. And you got to come back, show respect to us. We'll let you live there. We'll let you stay there. But you got to show respect that you recognize that we were the people you were supposed to have seen.
Yeah.
That a wicked member didn't show us to you. And now you got to acknowledge that you should have seen us. And because it's not your fault, we ain't going to take the land, but you got to show some respect to give us something as a token to show that you recognize who the real owners really are. And that's going on all over. And some of our people don't understand it. And we want to turn all of them into being wicked because one wicked member deceived you and the family's trying to make it right and you say all of them are liars. And we come away with all these perceptions of the exercise. And here with Ubuntu, what I found that whatever the problem is, it can be negotiated if you have the right mind. That's why the first thing they tell you, because I'm one of those that will blow up. First they say, calm down. We can talk.
Yes.
God, I don't want to talk about it. Get that out of my face. Calm down. Let's sit down. Let's reason together. So, but sometimes, like I say, the orientation we have in survival, and everybody's after me, and everybody was after us. You got to protect yourself. But at the same token, you have to learn how to reason and negotiate so you get to the end. You may start out with an extreme that you don't want to hear. It's not where you're starting out at. It's where you land at. And you can't land properly if you're not focused. And after all the wahala, you got to sit down and focus and reason to what the ultimate end of where you want to reach. How can we reach there together? That we can have the right mind.
I think that even
Unfortunately, we're talking to all the people who know everything already.
It's not
So
true.
much reasoning. But you might have someone on tape. Might be useful.